What if the biggest threat to the Trump administration isn't a political rival, but a secret that Washington is fighting tooth and nail to keep buried? Hi, everyone. I'm Matthew Sherwood, and welcome to Factual America. There's a collection of documents tied to one of the darkest scandals of our time, and its release is threatening to unravel everything. The fallout could cripple Mr. Trump's presidency and risk turning him into a lame duck overnight. At least that's what his rivals are hoping for. And this isn't just about the past. It's a crisis unfolding right now. This is the fight about the Jeffrey Epstein files, which has become way more than a legal battle. It's exploded into a political catastrophe that's cracking the Republican Party wide open and making even Donald Trump's most loyal supporters second-guess their guy, or at least use this as an excuse to finally push back. The question isn't about who was involved with Epstein anymore. It's about who's standing in the way of truth. And for a whole lot of voters, all signs are pointing straight to the White House. The whole story here is a trail of broken promises and shocking U-turns. When he was on the campaign trail, Trump seemed to get that the Epstein issue was a big deal, particularly with his base. We knew that here at Factual America. Episodes dedicated to the victims of Epstein's horrible crimes are some of our most watched videos. When Trump was asked about releasing the files, his answers were a little hesitant, if I remember correctly. They definitely leaned towards transparency, it did seem at the time. I mean, in one interview, he said, if I remember correctly, I guess I would. But then he added, you don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there. He also said he'd be inclined to do it. Certainly his supporters, some of them fed on a diet of QAnon and Pizzagate, heard what they wanted to hear. A promise to finally drain the swamp of its darkest secrets. But once he was back in office, things seemed to have changed fast, at least in the last few months. As people started demanding full disclosure, the administration put up a wall. Trump started calling the whole thing a Democrat hoax and told everyone not to waste time and energy on it. In a Truth Social post from July, I'm sure really late at night, he sounded completely over it, calling the case pretty boring stuff. That pivot from maybe opening the books to slamming them shut caused an explosion. His base felt totally betrayed. They were promising a reckoning, and instead they were being told to just look away. This wasn't just a policy change. For a lot of Trump supporters, it was a massive breach of trust. The administration's official moves just made things worse. Remember when all those influencers lined up in front of the White House to get those binders full of all the information that was supposed to give us a lot of clues as to what really went down with Epstein? Well, also remember back in February of this year, we had the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, say that the first phase of declassified files was on its way. But that proved to be a dud. People immediately called it out for being stuffed with documents that were basically already public. Then over the summer, the Justice Department twisted the knife, saying its exhaustive review found no client list and that they weren't going to look into anyone else. Actually, Alan Dershowitz, the lawyer who had involvement with Epstein and who's claimed his innocence despite being accused otherwise, has said there is a client list on a recent podcast elsewhere. But he says the FBI made it. It was based on their evidence, not on any list that Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell were keeping. But anyway, for a public already screaming cover-up, this didn't feel like an investigation. It felt like they were just locking the vault for good. So how did a legal issue, some of it based on very arcane laws and constitutionality issues, how did this issue turn into a full-on civil war inside MAGA? It all comes down to the giant gap that opened up between the administration and Trump's biggest fans. The cover-up idea went from a fringe theory to a mainstream belief, not just for Democrats who are trying to make political hay, but right in the heart of the MAGA movement. The polls started to paint a really ugly picture. One opinion survey from July 2025 showed that 67% of Americans believed the government was actually hiding Epstein evidence. That's a huge number, but the real shocker was that half of all Republicans felt that way. An October poll from NBC News NPR Marist, take it as you will, was even clearer. 67% of Republicans said they wanted all the files released, the exact opposite of what the administration was saying. As poll director Lee Miringoff put it, Trump had survived a lot of scandals, but, quote, the Epstein thing certainly speaks to an exception that proves the rule. We're not just talking about numbers on a page. This created a real public split in Trump's inner circle. Even diehard loyalists like Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who had been one of his loudest defenders, broke with him on this. She started publicly demanding the files be released, a move that reportedly got her labeled a traitor by the president, and led to a major falling out. At a press conference with Epstein survivors, Greene said the internal fight was one of the most destructive things for the movement. It showed that the demand for the truth about Epstein was strong enough to make even his biggest allies turn on him. Is that really the situation? Is that really what motivates people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and others? I leave you to be the judge. We had a episode recently looking at the MAGA Civil War, and a lot of this is really about setting people up to take over the MAGA movement, if that's even possible, once Trump is away from the scene. And that, in their minds, is looking sooner rather than later. Regardless, with the base in open rebellion, the pressure on Capitol Hill became intense. Get into the sort of parliamentary detail here, but a bipartisan bill called the Epstein Files Transparency Act popped up, and that was designed to force the Justice Department to release everything within 30 days. At first, Republican leadership in the White House tried to squash it, even calling key Republicans to the White House to tell them to vote no. For a while, it looked like the bill was dead, but the pressure from voters back home just wouldn't let up. It started to look like blocking the bill was way more politically toxic than just letting it pass. The real turning point was a discharge petition, basically a procedural power move to force a vote. When it got the 218 signatures it needed, including several Republicans, everyone knew the game was up. Facing a huge loss in the House, Trump did a complete 180. Just a couple days ago, a few days after saying he doesn't care about the files, Trump hits Truth Social again with a new message. Quote, House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files, he wrote, because we have nothing to hide, and it's time to move on from this Democratic hoax. Well, I guess we will see. It was an whiplash-inducing flip-flop, a last-ditch effort to get in front of a train that had already left the station. Just 2 days later, on November 18th, the House passed the bill with a wild vote of 427 to 1. Votes like that never happen. The single no vote, a Republican named Clay Higgins, said he thought the bill was just written poorly. Later that day, the bill flew through the Senate and headed straight to the president's desk, despite warnings from Republican leadership that it could get held up in the Senate with amendments. The same man who fought disclosure for months has now promised to sign it. This story is nowhere near finished, and the next 30 days could honestly change everything. We're going to be tracking every single update as that deadline gets closer. If you want to stay in the loop and really understand what's happening and shaping U.S. politics, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. And drop a comment below. Do you think we'll ever really see the full unredacted files? Do you think there are any big, earth-shattering revelations we're about to come across? Or will the powers that be make sure that they protect their own? In what looks like a desperate Hail Mary to get control of the story, Trump ordered Attorney General Pam Bondi to launch a new investigation, this time only into Epstein's connections to Democrats. Critics immediately called it a cheap trick, a way to create a new active investigation that could be used as legal excuse to hide or black out the very documents Congress just demanded. This whole mess isn't just about Jeffrey Epstein anymore. It's about the fact that a huge majority of Americans believe the government is hiding something big, not just the Epstein files. It's about a political movement fracturing from the inside out, and the trust between a leader and his followers seemingly completely eroding. The damage might already be done. The idea of a cover-up has taken root, and whether it's real or not, it has become a massive political problem that could hang over his entire presidency. The fate of Trump's administration might not be decided by polls or policies, but by a secret that Washington was just forced to face. The only question now is what's in those files. Stay tuned. This is Factual America, signing off.